Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. Thank you for joining today's episode. We're on a mission to share e-commerce logistics insights, trends, successes, and challenges from the leaders and innovators in our space.
The trend has returned to normal, the normal trend from the pandemic. It spiked up, it's come down. We're dealing with that in 2023, but it's returning right to the same trend line. That this is the way that we are continuing to want to live our lives. Packages delivered to our door, instant gratification, all the things that the digital commerce and digitization of our lives has brought.
Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. This episode, Ninad and I welcome Mark Lavelle, CEO at Margo. Mark has over 20 years of experience growing businesses at the intersection of commerce, payment, and internet technology. Previously, he was SVP of Commerce at Adobe as a result of the $1.7 billion acquisition of his former company, Magento Commerce, where he was CEO. Mark has also held leadership roles at eBay Enterprises and at PayPal, following its acquisition of Bill Me Later, a company Mark transformed from an idea to over $120 million in revenue. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you. Very excited for the conversation, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, gentlemen.
Super exciting, Mark. I do have to start with a question, though, Mark. Would you officially consider yourself to be PayPal Mafia?
I'm very post PayPal Mafia in the sense that people know the word. By the time I got to PayPal in 2008, Elon and Peter and Max and all those guys had gone on to maybe their second and third company. So, but very much follow that. It was a tremendous experience being at PayPal.
I think it's like layers of mafia, right? Like it's like, you got the big bosses, but then you got the second tier generals kind of following. Based on everything that you have done, I would qualify you as PayPal Mafia.
I appreciate that. It's an honor to be considered in that group for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. And maybe on that note, Mark, your career has been absolutely fascinating. So would love to start with maybe learning more about your journey over the past 20 years, having you cherry pick some of the highlight reel you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think relevant for this conversation, I guess I'll start where I got into the internet in the early 2000s, actually maybe 1998, 99, doing business development deals with companies like CNET and At Home, Excite, companies that, a lot of our younger listeners might not even know about, and really fell in love with the idea of the internet and the information age and how it can change various industries that we knew were going to be disrupted by this technology. That got us started I was a co-founder of what became Bill Me Later. One of the things back then that was early was e-commerce. Amazon was just getting started. One of the barriers was actually, how are you going to pay for things? I remember credit cards had lines of credit and people were worried about people stealing their credit card information. Yeah. There was a big trust gap between putting this information online, what was going to happen to it. So Bill Me Later arrived to answer that, as well as sort of the whole buy now, pay later concept of I want to get the product now. I want to remove friction from the purchase experience. That started what became a very big industry around sort of non-Visa MasterCard payments, other ways to pay that is now very sophisticated and very optimized. That company got sold, as you said in your introduction, to PayPal, and is still very much a big part of that company's growth story in terms of their credit and working capital parts of their business. I ran mergers and acquisitions and strategy for PayPal, and ultimately worked at the eBay Inc. level. Ultimately bought companies like Braintree and Venmo before I left, and spun Magento out of eBay and PayPal, which were breaking up into two separate stocks in 2015, and ran Magento, kind of transformed that company into a B2B commerce and cloud-based platform that ultimately got acquired, as you said, by Adobe. After that, I thought I'd retire, but I decided to get into, I think, what we'll talk about today, gentlemen,
Yeah.
which is another big problem to solve, which is shipping in this stage of digital commerce.
Yeah, and I love how you've identified what I would say are massive opportunities for disruption in the market. And took some right on, and maybe that will lead to a lot of the topic of discussion for today, which is the world of small parcel delivery. And as we look at the e-commerce market, it's pointed towards a $6 trillion market by 2024, and there's so much evolution going on in the world of small parcel delivery. It wasn't long ago that we were really looking at, a duopoly with UPS and FedEx and obviously plus US Postal Service. And a lot has been changing. So would love your perspective on, what's changing in the market and why is it today that there's so much opportunity for that change?
Well, it's great. The first part you said, which is something I'm really passionate about and have tried to focus my career on, is large market disruption. A lot of people have a hard time when you say there's 22 billion packages delivered in the U.S. every year. That's just a large, it's just a big number. And so when you think, well, that the duopoly owns that market, there's no way you can go disrupt that. I think that is a fallacy and a premise that we bring to market disruption, which is find a large market, identify a niche within that market that is underserved by the current players, and you can build a large company. We had the same pushback against us when we were starting Bill Me Later around, Visa, MasterCard is fine. It works. Why do I need anything else? My customers don't really want anything else. My customers use these credit cards. So, convincing people is the initial kind of friction of there's a better way to do things. There's another way to do things. But once you get that catalyst, once you get that adoption, you can build a very large company, even while the players that are already participating still do well. Visa, MasterCard has not gone out of business because of PayPal and Affirm and all these others. So what we're looking to do is grow the pie. What we're looking to do is create alternatives that will enhance value proposition, and whether it's better speed to market, better time in transit, or lower cost, or a combination of those things. So that's how I think about it, and I think your question about where parcel market's going is quite interesting, and look forward to sharing my views on that.
Yeah, I mean, also, Mark, there is this, of course, early days, I guess, when you were doing your early startups in the finance space, there were other competition, right? And this similar thing exists today in the market. But what I find interesting is you are not tackling the first mile problem, middle mile problem, or the last mile problem. You are tackling the end-to-end problem. But the interesting value proposition that I see is the fact that there is so many good things happening in specifically first mile and specifically last mile that you could be leveraging those things to kind of like play it out, right? Like the market dynamics are such that even we are noticing a lot of movement within first mile or last mile, right? But to be able to tackle a challenge that looks at it end to end, that's something that I gotta, again, it's definitely a pretty large task at hand. But with your background, I feel fairly confident.
Well, thank you. Thank you. When we take a step up and define the problem, I think it would be good. It's the growing expectations that consumers have for delivery. Like pretty soon, if it's not already now, 1/5 to 1/4 of all purchases will happen online. Sort of the trend has returned to normal, the normal trend from the pandemic. It spiked up, it's come down. We're dealing with that in 2023, but it's returning right to the same trend line, that this is the way that we are continuing to want to live our lives. Packages delivered to our door, instant gratification, all the things that the digital commerce and digitization of our lives has brought. As we've done that, there's been this company called Amazon that has certainly changed the game in terms of customer centricity around serving customers. And I'd contend for the purpose of this discussion, what they've really done is made the delivery experience as important, if not more so, than the product itself. And so once that's locked in, you have increasing share of commerce being happened online. You have consumers expecting the immediacy and the transparency that they get from that company to be transported to all the brands that they deal with. Then you have a problem to solve. And I think that's where we come in, thinking, how do you organize the first mile, mid mile, and final mile to do this in a way that satisfies that customer demand without, and this is a bigger subject, without damaging the economics of small to medium-sized sellers that don't have the scale of an Amazon or a Walmart or a Target, to create very, very complicated logistics footprints to do that. And that's what we went about to solve. And it turns out there's a lot of assets out there driving and flying and even scootering to create a parcel network that works for a 2 to 3 day time in transit, which is what we're becoming known for.
Absolutely. And this has to be asked, right? You said the duopoly right now, or Dan mentioned duopoly, the FedEx UPS. Do you feel, though, that Amazon's going to start stepping into that particular space? Because their current logistics network is very focused on their own delivery. But it almost feels like there is an infrastructure being built that they are going to end up utilizing, right? So you also have that's going to come into the fray is kind of my hypothesis on that front. And do you have any opinions on that?
No doubt. As a matter of fact, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago they announced that they are going to start to take 5-day parcels from non-Amazon sellers. And this is something I think industry observers have predicted for a long time. If you look at the components of Amazon, what they sell in their warehouses is becoming a very small component of their profitability. You look at AWS, when you look at Prime as a whole, and now you look at this logistics infrastructure, think of them as separate businesses. These are massive, massive businesses. Yeah. And I think the stock price and the need for growth necessitates that those businesses will continue to take share from wherever they can. So I think we do have an idea that Amazon will participate as a simple carrier. And so, if you're FedEx and UPS and, you're looking at that ground, that ground business, I think you have a very serious competitor at your doorstep, and they probably know that. And that's been known for some time. I think that we're back to the law of large markets doesn't mean when an Amazon comes into a piece of the market that the game is over, that nobody else can participate. You have tremendous amount of disruption, as you alluded to, around the final mile. FedEx and UPS have a great final mile network. It's geared entirely towards parcel. And what happens in those cases is other people who have other interests in getting to the front door or to the apartment, which is a very valuable place to be, have other reasons to get there. Think of DoorDash, think of Instacart, think of Uber, think of Walmart, as they've opened up their platform for parcel delivery. All these folks have a different vested interest in beating their way to our doorstep, right? It's food delivery, it's ride sharing, it's pick up and drop off from the stores in the case of Walmart or Target. So I think that final mile is probably the really interesting thing to kind of piece feel here. It's the most expensive part of a parcel delivery.
That's beautiful. And also on the final mile, I have a hypothesis that there's going to be massive consolidation on that side as well, right? With the amount of services that are out there. Like, I live in Toronto, and one of the things to notice is even the tech players are very regional. They have cities that they have captured on the final mile side, and you are starting to see entering a new market is a little harder for them if someone's already present in a given market. So I hypothesize on that front that you're going to see some consolidation. But from your perspective, you are using the network today, and whatever happens in the future, you should be able to utilize that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. It takes a lot of density, volume and density to create an efficient final mile network, or any part of the network, really, first mile or mid mile. But when you have, say, DoorDashers running around in that city, also delivering, lunch packages during the hours of 11 to 2, or dinner, and then they have these downtimes. What if they also are in the business of opening their trunk and having the software that they work on, say you're near these 3 addresses,
Yep.
go ahead and use this next 45 minutes to deliver these packages. You kind of change the density equation a little bit, right? You change the profitability equation. So that's my point, that there's new entrants coming in. There's a vast in-motion network of hard assets, cars, trucks, airplanes, flying around in various stages of capacity that software and technology can help fill, that actually looks like an end-to-end, as you say. What we're doing is end-to-end. For X amount of per package, I'll pick it up here and I'll deliver it there. That's what we've tapped into here. And I think as long as that trend continues, which I think it will, we can build a very big business.
And I think while we talk about Amazon, right, and I want to get your perspective on, from a solution standpoint, one of the things that differentiates Amazon and its logistics footprint from the FedEx and UPS, and I'm both Dan and I are ex-FedEx as an example. One of the things that differentiates is the control over the pre-click experience, right? Getting the information about this package needs to go from point A to point B is one thing. But to know who the consumer is and what the expectation to that consumer is and getting into that, I think that's where the true value resides as a service provider, right? I feel that if the carrier can be more embedded in making the promise rather than allowing this promise to be a different thing that is being made, I can get it to you in 2 days or 5 days, and then saying, okay, find me the best way to get it there. What if the service itself is embedded into the platform to say, tell me, where do you live? And I'll tell you on the product page, if you purchase this right now, I'll have it to you in 2 days. Right, by knowing the network spread. So I just want a point of view on that. Yeah,
and that's an excellent point. And the key thing about that is no longer a technology problem. That is no longer we don't have the data or the technology to do it. And I think this is the biggest miss. Margo is kind of focused on the apparel, soft goods industry, sort of the 1 to 20 pound package part of the market, massive volume in that market. Mm-hmm. But if you look at how that experience looks for the vast majority of, say, the top 2,000 sellers, we look at it and say it's very unoptimized. What you typically get is a free shipping message on the homepage of the product page, a nondescript free shipping, because everybody has learned for the last 15 years, 20 years, free shipping is table stakes. Okay, yep. Free shipping. But what has happened is it's not free shipping. It is, as you said, it is a estimated delivery date. It is an estimated delivery date told to you at the time you're making the decision whether to buy the extra T-shirt or the swimsuit for the weekend or the dress for the big night out. You need to know well above, right on the product detail page, when and if and how much it's going to cost to get you that product. And this is the big miss. This is the new gap of consumer expectation that we really encourage merchants to look at, because we've done a study. We work with the Santa Clara University as a retail management institute that I happen to be a board of, and we're on the board of, and we ran a study with them, with consumers, that asked the question, how important it is to you? And 78% of our respondents said that shipping transparency and shipping costs are in their top 3 considerations. It was more than price. 48% said price was the major topic. 78% said a shipping related concern was. So this is when we say that, Amazon has made the delivery of the experience, the brand. That's true. That's very true. When a customer can click off and look at if they can get a same or similar product faster or cheaper, they will do it. And this is where we're preaching as much as we can to everybody who will listen to us.
Absolutely. We've been saying it for a while as well, right? It's the holy grail. And I agree with you. Technology is not the problem. It is just the integration of all of these tech capabilities that you already have to bring it together to say product display page needs to consider and know about the network. And I'll tell you, at an Amazon level, when you are on a given page, right, it's putting a soft allocation lock on inventory down at some warehouse, right? Like the fact that you are there, they are saying, I'm going to hold this until you leave this page. I mean, that is truly revolutionary, right? Like, and I mean, we all like to kind of like look at Amazon and talk about like, how can we help the other brands? But I think there is so much to learn from some of those fundamentals of supply chain that they utilize, right? And it's truly eye-opening, I would say. So I'm glad you guys are reaching.
Yeah. I think anybody that you would have on your program that was from the industry wouldn't disagree with anything we just said. But here's where the problem kind of occurs. Once you get into what it takes to deliver a fast and free or near free delivery service, and a gold standard, I think, is 2 to 3 days, right? That's sort of the expectation that's set. Yes, Amazon is moving to faster delivery, but let's just talk in the premise of if you could run a 2 to 3 day national network, tell the consumer that if they order on Tuesday, they're getting it on Friday. You've kind of hit the standard. When they look at the options for doing that, it becomes a cost issue, right? So the marketing person cares about free shipping and making sure that it's optimized. The CFO is banging on the logistics VP and saying, keep the cost of shipping as low as you can. So you end up with this weird, it's bizarre. I look at so many shipping presentments since I've gotten into this. You see this, hey, we'll get this to you for free, and it'll be 5 to 7 business days or some bizarre range, 3 to 8 business days or some sort of strange promise. And say, but if you'd like to get it faster, here's another option. Pay us $20 and we'll get it to you in 2 to 3 days, right? Or pay us $40 and we'll get it to you next day. So there's this huge separation. The consumer's going, what are you talking about? Like it's an $80 item. It's a $100 item. Am I going to pay another $20 to get it 2 or 3 days earlier? And then they throw up their hands. But it's worse. A lot of times they don't learn about that until they take the next step into the purchase process. Give me your payment details. Give me your shipping details. So you've made the decision to buy, then you wait to find out that your expectations are not met. It's a horrible experience. You got to move all that up. And I'd say even being more transparent, whether or not you charge them or not, like if you want it expedited, there's going to be a way, it's going to be this. It builds more trust than waiting till the end of the process and having the customer abandoned.
Wholeheartedly agree. I'll be honest. I think I've never, except once, paid for shipping in the last 5 years, where the only reason I did, and maybe I should show you this, I got a headphone holder that's Jean-Luc Picard, and I just needed it immediately. So this is the only time I paid for shipping because they said otherwise it would take 3 weeks. So
I thought you were going to hold up a slap on me because the only time I did it was I needed we were getting steaks delivered and it already was expensive, but I'm like, okay, but I really want it next. I want it to get there, so I can't hold up those steaks and show you.
Though Dan, isn't there our conversations and our research, right, indicates there is a play where 5 days is acceptable, right? Like if you are a unique brand that you just can't find that product anywhere else and you're free or the only shipping option is 5, you don't see cart abandonment, but you got to be confident about when you are going to deliver. If you say that very confidently, yes, the client's going to accept it. But that's only applicable to the brands where there is loyalty to that brand that folks are purchasing from. Other than that, yes, it's like table stakes is 2 days. Like I need it in 2 days. 2 business days are nothing else.
Yeah. No, I agree. We work with brands that I think when they're early and they kind of hit the market really fast and really hard, and there is really strong adoption for their product, they kind of are given this pass, it seems like, because you can't buy the product maybe in marketplaces. You have to go to the .com site, and we've seen them. But those brands, they know their customer. They know the LTV value. They know the exact date has to be there through like a free shipping. And I would say from, actually a recent conversation with a couple of them, it's a journey, right? At some point, once they convert over to Amazon and you could buy their product in Amazon Marketplace, then the customer expectation on .com starts transitioning to like you said, Mark, a 2 to 3 day. And I'll give you an example right now of where my wife and I are going to a concert tonight. I totally procrastinated in buying these like shirts that we wanted to wear. So I bought them last night and Amazon said they'd be here today. So as I'm tracking these, because we're leaving like late afternoon to go and start tailgating, because Amazon kicked these shipments over to UPS, I still just have a will be delivered by 9 p.m. I know if it would have stayed within Amazon's transportation network, I would have seen on the app, you are 3 stops away from your delivery, right? I would have had that DoorDash, Uber Eats type experience where I knew exactly when that was going to come. Now I just have to flip a coin and either come up with option B or get lucky and have them delivered.
That was another big thing that came out of our study was the consumers expect that they're going to get this transparency, right? They expect it at the beginning. Oh, you're a trusted brand. I must know when I'm going to get my product or when something happens. When they don't get it, it's another fail to build customer loyalty. And like I said, it's not like this technology is not available. It's not like the data isn't available. It's just you have to orient your supply chain and your parcel chain and your consumer brand strategy really to really meet their needs of up-leveling expected delivery date, transparency around cost, and transparency around every stage of delivery. Particularly, I would agree for higher consideration items. But I'd say I'd push back a little bit on the 5-day thing. I think when you talk about running a business, you're really talking about change at the margin. So yes, it might be that 5 days is quote unquote fine, but did you do an A/B test to show that what 3 days would do or 2 days would do? Did you know that if you were actually to improve that experience, you'd get 10, 15% higher conversion rate? Did you know you'd get 10% more repeat customer behavior? Did you know your shopping cart would go up 5 to 7? So we talk about change at the margin. You have to sort of believe where the trend is going, right? So sometimes we can observe a trend. Yes, Amazon's done this. But if you think out a couple of years, what's the effect of having done that? Is that expectation continues to compound. So I hear a lot, I say, our product isn't a product that is needed in 2 to 3 days. Our customers don't expect it. We don't need to do it. I would push back on that 100% and love to get into A/B testing scenarios with those folks and show them that really your business all your business metrics are improved by going faster.
I think a lot of that has to do with, Mark, the example you gave, right? The CFOs pounding the table, basically go and reduce the cost. And, there is this demand, the marketing's trying to do the analysis. It's like essentially the team's trying to convince each other to say, listen, 5 is where it works based on the margins that we have for the product that we are selling. And that's where kind of it settles. Sometimes the products just don't allow, right? Like that's what ends up happening as well, right? Like Amazon's got this amazing benefit of shipping a box, but having 4 different merchants' products inside the box. Nobody else has that luxury other than other marketplaces. But essentially, nobody else has that level of luxury, right? Like it's like if I'm buying 2 T-shirts with a margin of, $5 a pop, now I got a problem trying to ship it with, 2-day air. And I think that's where Margot's kind of coming in and trying to save for, right? And make sense of it all.
Thanks for that opening. I think what we do, what I'm really proud of that we do is we can tell a merchant, a digital first brand shipping out of one distribution center in any part of the country. We have companies shipping out of Dallas, Salt Lake City, that they can reach this national SLA of 2 to 3 days from one distribution center. And that can take them a long, long way. You guys know better than I do based on your experience, the complexity of triplicating your inventory, trying to do zone shipping. I think the dirty little secret a bit in the industry is that it's not working for a lot of these brands. They were sold that was going to work. and especially in the fashion area where you've got a lot of SKUs and you got thin inventory per SKU, just doesn't work. So by knitting together this national network that we've been able to do with Margo, you can grow a long, long time out of one distribution center and meet those customer expectations. And
I agree.
That's something we're really proud of.
Listen, more warehouses translate to more work for us at the end of the day. But I will say this. I would rather see a network where we don't have to split, right? Like if I was a brand, do I want to be investing in forecasting capabilities of inventory positioning in 3 different warehouses? I can tell you, like 80% of the industry is like 60-40 split, 60 East Coast, 40 West Coast, right? Like if I got 2 warehouses, right? Like that, it's without science and then the inefficiencies that come into play. So if I can really operate out of a single node and still contain my cost while keeping my consumers happy, that's what I want to do, right? Like that's what I want to do. The only reason I'm going to do too, transportation is the primary and the biggest factor why you split inventory. Like straight up, it's the trans cost. So yeah, completely wholeheartedly agree.
And I think that's why there's such a massive opportunity for disruption here, Mark, because if you go back to what Ninad just said, and you look at the concentration of a digital native infrastructure across the U.S., it's a facility in the Midwest and it's a facility in Southern California or somewhere on the West Coast. Why is that? It's because of UPS and FedEx. If you had those 2 nodes and you would deliver to 90% of the US population in 2 days via a ground service. So that drove, I think, the past decade of that type of infrastructure taking place. Now, here's the reality of that. The effect of that is in those markets, commercial, industrial real estate is really expensive and competitive. Labor is good luck trying to find a labor. So if you could now, position an opportunity for brands, 3PLs, retailers to say, listen, you could go to a geographic location that's not as competitive from, a lease. What are the 2 largest items on someone's P&L in this space, right? It's infrastructure, it's your lease, and it's your payroll. So if you could go somewhere and still get that 2 to 3 day delivery expectation that consumers are looking for, I think that's massive.
Yeah, we're flying out of 16 airports now. We'll fly out of 26 next year. So any place you're close to an airport, which in this country is most places, we can set up sortation capability. We have this concept of micro sortation, small lightweight sortation, sorting into for our mid-mile service, Delta, Southwest, American, or United, and into their narrow body planes, which have tremendous amount of spare capacity for these parcels. And instead of flying to one of the hubs, right, it flies to as close to the final mile address that we can get to with a direct flight. So you pick up time in transit in the mid-mile tremendously. You get the product closer to the final mile, which is the most expensive part of it, as we've said. And we've found through millions and millions of packages, you're able to do this reliably, predictably. It's a less of a carbon footprint for that package because it's going in spare capacity. And another thing you mentioned about where do you put your distribution centers today, you have On Track and LSO and Axle Hire, and you have these regional carriers around you, which we tap into, that you can inject in directly in your neighborhood, right? And hit a 1 day or 2 day SLA. The other problem with all of this is that we help solve is there's a lot of complexity. You've got to create some physical lanes for every carrier that comes into that distribution center, right? So I think that complexity grows as we get more and more options. And what we're designing our platform for, an API-based platform that connects into all these, is that our label can handle one to many dimensions of regional carriers, mid-mile carriers, final mile carriers out of that single lane. One bill, one contract, one relationship allows merchants who otherwise might not have the scale to take advantage of all this, the ability to take advantage of all these alternative carrier options.
And would that also take care of the common carriers, FedEx and UPS as well? Would you be able to print that out?
We would, but right now our service does not touch those two networks at all.
The reason why I kind of hinted on that, because I personally deal with that challenge. Literally, it's like part of my life, right? Like where it's enabling a new carrier in a given warehouse at any given time. Because at the end of the day, from a system standpoint, you have the traditional WMSs or multi-carrier systems that are in play. And as soon as you add a new carrier, there is the part of the technical integration. And it could be one too many. But if I have more than two connections going out, I need to, from an execution standpoint in warehouse, figure out how I'm going to sort these so I can have these packages separated out for the daily pulls or whatever is going to end up happening. I think that's where a lot of rub happens. So if from a carrier service standpoint, you could also provide like a single API that also addresses the other, it's a really easy kind of get into that warehouse environment. It's at least, something that I think about all the time. And I understand why it would be challenging to be able to do that while also doing this. But the barriers to entry that you are going to find, and you're going to constantly, and I'm sure you deal with this all the time, it's that sales will love it. Operations will love it. It's going to be the IT guys going, we can't add one more carrier integration into this, right? Like that's where the rub ends up happening. But it's like, oh, but here's an integration that can take care of everything. Easy sell.
Well, the shame of this is, and I'm amazed by this, for all the money we spend on the display layer, the glass, right? Personalization, order management capabilities, pricing and payments and things like that. By the time it gets down to the warehouse, it's like the land that technology forgot. The inflexibility of some of the systems that we see. I see you're taking a deep breath. It's just like there's no money left to do this stuff. I'm shocked. And so the importance of being able to integrate easily for any new service is paramount, and that's a little bit more of what we've designed into our capability.
That's amazing. And I agree with you, and I'll probably not say much because I would get in trouble around the subject. But I'll say it is extremely frustrating from a technical perspective in warehouses, specifically enterprises. It's probably one of the slowest moving. It's more like folks that are embedded for decades doing the same stuff, and it's just the same answers. And guess what? That's where I came from. I'll be very honest. I was the guy telling no to people, be like, we can't add one more carrier. Now I understand why it's important when I'm on the other side of the universe, right? So hopefully we can all make a change together. So
yeah. Well, and now it's hurting growth, right? I mean, businesses that are successful on the marketing side can end up being very unsuccessful on the fulfillment side, and it can kill the business.
Absolutely.
So I think that's hopefully now getting more attention from capital allocators, that there's better ways to do things.
Exactly. And also working with more multi-carrier systems that are already embedded in there. And it's like adding a new carrier is not a big deal at that point. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, we want to get your perspective on maybe a futuristic perspective on what's happening. But before we go there was one more piece of news that broke this week, I think in the last 1 to 2 days, Amazon related. Back in 2015, Amazon rolled out this seller fulfilled network or opportunity for brands to fulfill their own orders and earn the Prime badge if they met certain expectations, had that 2-day delivery. That went on for a couple years, and then they pulled it back. They just opened it back up in the past couple months, saying that they're going to let more brands, again, that could prove they could get delivery within 2 days, come back into the seller fulfilled Prime network. But yesterday they announced that if you do not use Amazon for as the transportation provider, that Amazon would take a 2% cut of every product that you self-fulfilled. And I think there's a minimum of like 25 cents or something. And that's effective October 1st. So they announced it in the last 48 hours. It's effective the beginning of October, right in time for peak season, of course. But it just feels like, again, they're really trying to strong arm to something we talked about earlier in the podcast, wanting to own and wanting to, I guess, earn that portion of the revenue. So I know that's just came out, but any perspective on that or how you see the market will take that? There's been I've seen a lot of articles already and posts of people like being a little disgruntled because they've actually built a network to not use Amazon for the final mile for the transportation arm. And now they have, a 2% hit, coming within a couple months.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty stark. I think if you take them at their word that that Jeff Bezos founded the company around true customer centricity and following the customer and following the data, they're screaming out loud that this is the urgency and the efficacy of the brand of the delivery promise is paramount to their brand. So they don't want anything on their platform selling that doesn't meet that standard. And this is a pretty harsh way to send that message because, like you said, a lot of people can hit that without touching the Amazon network. But I think it just underscores to brands selling anywhere that this is a game that's going to be played, that there's a premium on meeting that customer expectations. And Amazon is a fact of life. So if you're going to play with them, you're going to have to play their game. And so we just factor that into everybody's business plan.
Makes sense.
Yep. Makes sense. No, I appreciate you sharing that. So what's your perspective? Obviously we talked about the massive growth that's going to continue in the world of e-commerce as it relates to small parcel. Any predictions, any final thoughts you'd like to share? And I think it's also noteworthy, as mentioned, you have a co-founder of a venture capital firm. So you're always looking for interesting opportunities to invest in the space. So any parting thoughts on that front?
Yeah, these are exciting times, I guess, is one word for it. This is like from a technology standpoint, this has been the correction that many people have predicted for 15 years, really unbridled since 08. The run up of valuations and how capital got deployed has been a head scratcher for many, with the proliferation of unicorns. I think there was only 2 unicorns created in the last quarter, which is the first time that's happened, And so these billion-dollar companies that were valued on ideas and on top-line growth only have come, not to an end. There's no absolutisms here, but come to pretty much of a halt. And what is at premium now is sustainable business models, profitable business models, cash-generating business models that can address a part of the market where you have some differentiation. And so that correction is kind of still coming through our system. We still have, I think, a long way to go. There's a lot of companies that have raised a lot of cash that will not be able to raise new cash at the valuation that they raised before or at all. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in logistics, because logistics became the darling of growth capital and venture capital in the last couple of years. Yeah. So there've been a lot of companies funded that don't have mature business models, and we'll see how that all plays out. So you mentioned consolidation. I think there will be consolidation. I think there'll be a fair amount of companies that just don't exist anymore. Right. If they don't have access to capital, if they don't have good business plans, if they're not executing. So, I think we'll certainly see that in the warehouse and 3PL industry. I think we'll see it in some of these carrier industries and some of the like in payments, we have too many companies doing essentially the same thing when it comes to, some of the software capabilities that are being provided.
Yeah.
That could take a little while to play out, but I think that's where we are now.
Agreed. I mean, people got used to OPM, right? Other people's money, right?
Yeah.
And it's this idea, right, where Uber Eats can give out a lot of discounts and free and whatnot, right? Like $30, $40 discounts, and people start buying and people get hooked. And we thought that logistics also could work that way, where, we spent way more money delivering this service, but there is no dominance in this space, right? Like, of course, carriers, and I see what you are doing and where you are going, right? But if you look at like 3PL as a segment, right? That building dominance, there is no one person that owns greater than 10% of the market. Like, it's just non-existent. That's how supply chain happens to be. So I think, the traditional institutional VCs that came into the gold rush thinking, here's a new segment, I think there is a pullback that's happening, but it's really good time for, folks like you, strategic VCs that actually understand the industry and say, okay, we're going to make the right bets on the right type of people, and completely agree. Cash generating businesses. So, yeah. Cash generating businesses.
Yeah. and luckily we operate in a very large market, like you said, very fragmented, high rate of change. We alluded to, it's a land where software has yet to really penetrate in the modern sense of it. So a lot of opportunity in this industry. I'm very excited. It's a thrill to be a part of it, and I'm excited about the next couple of years.
So are we. That's why we do this every day.
Well, listen, Mark, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share with the audience where they could go to learn more about Margo, where they could follow you on social, any links or websites you want to provide.
Yeah, go to margo.com, maergo.com. And we've got resources there. One of the things we love to do is this A/B testing. Anybody that wants to test this with us, we love to do it. We come from the e-commerce kind of environment where that's that's a great thing to learn how to optimize your business. And you'll see papers out there that we've done with Chubbies, and we're publishing new things from the RMI Institute all the time. Follow us on LinkedIn. We predominantly work on LinkedIn to get our name out there, but love to have a discussion with any 3PL, any merchant interested in what we've talked about. You can hit me at mark.lavelle@margo.com.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Appreciate it, guys.
Hi, I'm Ninad Acharya, CEO and co-founder of Fulfillment IQ, and I'm here with
Dan Call, CRO and partner at Fulfillment IQ. We're the team behind the Ecom Logistics Podcast. Our mission is to provide you with genuine insights from our work alongside logistics leaders to help you improve your supply chain.
In the Ecom Logistics Podcast, we share the knowledge and the insights we've gained from working alongside amazing brands, retailers, 3PLs, and VCs, so you can make the most out of your supply chain journey.
If you like what you're hearing, we'd truly appreciate your support with a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting channel. Your feedback not only keeps us going, but also helps others find the podcast. If you think Fulfillment IQ can assist you, or if you have an idea related to logistics, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always up for a chat and ready to explore new possibilities together.
Stay tuned to the Ecom Logistics Podcast on your favorite podcast platform for fresh and practical insights into e-commerce and logistics. Until next time, let's keep making a difference in logistics together.